thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is Cher Ross from Vixen, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas coming at you once again with another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. So before we get started today, I do need to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Restaurant.com. With Restaurant.com, you can save at thousands of restaurants across the country with just a few clicks. Their dining deals range from $5 to $100, never expire, and cost you a fraction of the face value. Dinner's never been easier with Restaurant.com. Used for dine-in, takeout, or delivery. Restaurant.com is offering our listeners 50% off their next purchase by going to www.restaurant.com/podcast. That's www.restaurant.com/podcast for 50% off your next purchase. Restaurant.com, the best deal every meal. So, rock soldiers, so glad you're joining me today. As you could see from the title of the show, we have Todd on the phone today, the basis of Bad Marriage. I'm super stoked about this. I'm a huge fan of Bad Marriage. I'm sure you guys remember that from previous episodes. And before we get Todd on the phone, I do want to play you a clip of one of their songs. We're going to dive into his career, how he got started, some Bad Marriage, touring with Tesla, and just all around rock and roll chat. So this is Bad Marriage with Electric Emerald Eyes. So Todd, I have to thank you for being here, first of all, because you know I'm such a big fan. I love you guys, so I really appreciate this.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Let's jump back as far as we can go and tell me what got you into rock and roll.
Wow, God, as far as you can go. So back in the dark ages, it really has to start with my father. You know, he was not a rock and roll fan whatsoever, and I have an uncle who's about 10 years older than me, more like an older brother to me at this point. And he gave my father some vinyl records. I don't know if the kids nowadays know what those are. And my father he didn't want them, so he gave them to me. And one of the records he gave me was a little album called Kiss Destroyer. And yeah. I hadn't even put it on the turntable. Just looking at the cover of that album, I pointed to one person that's on the cover of the album and said, I don't know what he does. I don't know who he is, but that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And of course, it was Gene Simmons. Yeah. I had no idea he was a bass player whatsoever. But, you know, I put that record on and from start to finish was just entranced. And the other record that was given to me was Exile on Main Street by the Stones. So it was kind of a eye and ear opening experience to the rock and roll world.
So Gene Simmons is the reason you became a bass player.
He is, but I will state it's not for, you know, I give Gene all the credit in the world. It's not for his repertoire on the bass. He lays down the good foundation for a great rock and roll band, but it was more his image that hooked me than anything else, again, because I didn't know he was a bass player when I looked at that. I had no idea what a bass was when I was looking at that.
Do you remember how old you were?
Had to be about 8 or 9, somewhere around there, maybe 10.
Okay, so would you do you still consider Kiss one of your top bands?
They're definitely in my top 10. They're not my top 5. You know, as you grow older and get opened up to more music out there and more bands and more genres, you know, your musical stylings change. And I think the next band that really opened my eyes was Aerosmith. You know, being a guy from Boston and having an uncle that used to live in the Boston area and who's feeding you this stuff. I think he fed me in the right direction, and he was feeding me Aerosmith at first. He's like, you know, these guys are from where you are. And that's what really started me on the path. You know,
Okay.
didn't start me on the path of the bass, but that's really what really hooked me in. And right around that time, I ended up getting uprooted and moved out of the town I lived in just prior to becoming a teenager. And the first people I met were actually putting a band together and didn't have a bass player. I said I had interest in playing bass. I didn't have a bass, but I became a bass player at that point.
Really? So you started to play bass specifically to join this band?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it worked out. Yeah, it just it kind of fell that way, and you know, and I think you may even know that bass players always have work. There seems to be a shortage of bass players out there.
Oh yeah.
So we always seem to have work, but it just happened to work out that way. That the new town I moved into, people were looking for things, and it just it so happened. And my friend who was the guitar player in that band, we call him the Skunk, really laid the foundation and taught me how to play, taught me root notes, and from there it was just left to my own desires.
Okay, so you learned the basics from him, but then you're kind of self-taught from there?
I am. I've never had a proper lesson. You know, I definitely had to learn the hard way, because back when I was learning, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have, internet to go and look up tablatures and whatnot. You know, we were basically scraping from Guitar World, or the way I really learned to play was by ear, listening to what the guys I like, the bands I like, what they were doing, and trying to emulate them note for note. And that's really what taught me the bass, was listening to guys like Tom Hamilton, you know, guys like, I'll throw Duff out there, because Duff was just a huge inspiration, to me. Those two bands combined, they were my first show ever. Aerosmith with Guns N' Roses opening back in 1988.
Oh, wow.
You know? Yeah, I mean, that if that doesn't say something to you about, you know, your rock and roll destiny, then I don't know what does.
Yeah, what a heavy-hitting show. Oh, my God.
Right. You know, and from there, you find all these other bands that you love and respect, you know. I mean, I'd go to all these. I hate using the term because it's not a like term, but, you know, they were called hair bands of the day. To me, they were, you know, it's arena rock. You know, bands like Tesla and you know, bands like, well, I'd throw Ozzy Osbourne in the same thing, because he had, you know, let's call it big hair in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You're speaking my language right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I cut my teeth on, you know? I mean, even I think one of the least respected bands out of that heyday is White Lion. I'm very proud to say that I'm still a fan of those guys, and just wish that Vito would decide to just, you know what, do a couple month tour with those guys, and that band was sick.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually a giant White Lion fan, and I had tickets to see Mike Tramp this year, but we know how that turned out.
Oh, it turned out the same for everybody, my friend.
Yep. But that's funny that you brought them up, though, because that's one of my favorite hair bands is White Lion, for sure.
Yeah, and again, one of the, you know, they didn't get the due they deserved, if you ask me.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, When the Children Cry is a great song, but if you dig into their deep cuts, they are just phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they had a killer rhythm section in Greg and James. I mean, those two went on to play with Zakk Wylde, you know, later in life. It's those guys are insanely talented, and I don't know. You can again maybe blame it on grunge coming to the forefront, where those guys didn't get to continue their songwriting careers.
Right, you know? Right. I totally agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of bands that broke in like 1990 that would have been enormous had they not been killed off like 2 years later.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think about nowadays, you know, because a lot of those bands that were, you know, could have gone somewhere. Hey, guess what? We're in 2020, or, you know, let's go back to 2019, and all of those bands, guess what? They're out touring.
Yeah, right.
Where are these grunge bands? Well, unfortunately, some of them, you know, fortunately, some of them are still out there. unfortunately, we have the other side of the story where, the Demons took a hold of some great names from that era.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, while we're on the topic of the hair bands, though, are there any other big inspirations for you next to Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith?
Yeah, I'm not going to throw these guys into the hair band classification because, they're the furthest thing from the hair band. But Tesla, their working man attitude, just their blue jeans and rock and roll and getting out there and not caring. And, you might be kind of laughing that I'm throwing them out there forefront because, many years later, lo and behold. But, they write some fantastic songs, and they stand behind them still to this day. And, that's going to make a band last, is if you write good songs, really good songs, you're gonna remain known in musical history. Yeah. But aside from those guys, I have so many different influences. I love Rush. I'll throw out Mr. Big. I love ZZ Top. My range is varied. Yeah, it's a lot of rock and roll, a lot of Southern driven blues. Mm-hmm. But, if it's a good song, I'll listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So how old were you when you played your first gig?
First gig? The first gig I ever played was opening for a lip sync contest at my high school. So I'm going to have to say, 16 maybe.
And then it was just off to the races from there for you?
It was. It wasn't a good performance, but it's just like, anytime I had the opportunity to get on the stage and just, make an idiot of myself, I'd take advantage of that. I did some drama in high school, drama club stuff. Any kind of the contest that they had that allowed you to get up on a stage, I wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. Whether it was good or not, I just wanted to be on that stage because there's some rush about it,
Yeah, absolutely. So if you fast forward however many years, how do you end up in Bad Marriage?
All right, so ending up in Bad Marriage, my previous band, The Sheltered, was my last original band before Bad Marriage. That kind of fell apart spectacularly right after we released our first album that was about 4 years in the making. My heterosexual life-made brother from another mother, Johnny V, who, works with us in Bad Marriage, was a part of that band. And, it just fell apart for us. And I just said, I need to find something original. And I'm not getting any younger. I need to find what's going to be the end-all, be-all. And I just so happened to go out one night, probably a night I would never go out, and go to my favorite local bar, The Tradesman. And I walk in, and there's someone sitting at the bar that looks, I can only describe as a rock and roll cowboy. And he was sitting with my friend Jay, who owns a local comic shop here, Rubber Chicken Comics. And I walked up to Jay, said hello, ordered my beer, and Jay turned and said, "Hey, Todd, you ever met Fitzy?" And lo and behold, Mike Fitz is sitting there, and we introduce ourselves. And the first thing he says to me, it's just crazy the way this works out. "You wouldn't happen to be a bass player, would you?"
Come on.
And yeah, I swear to God. I have people that would witness this. And Jay just happened to answer before I could even say something. And he's like, "Well, he sure is. And he's pretty good." Jay was lying about that, but, and just Fitzy and I got to talking. I had heard of the band Bad Marriage, but I hadn't had the pleasure of seeing them, really hearing anything, because they hadn't really started releasing much of anything at that point. And Fitzy, sent me some stuff, sent me some material that night. I got home that night and listened to the material, and I was hooked. He sent me an old version of Old School Stereo, and I said, "Where has this band been my entire life?" Wow. So, yeah. So I got the audition, and, they put me through the ringer, and lo and behold, they let me into the band. And, it's just funny that we hadn't met before, because myself, Delaney, and Fitzy all lived within one town from each other from the age of 13 to where we are now, and never met each other once. Really? Playing in the same music circles. Yeah, we never met each other.
Wow, that's insane. And he just asked you if you're a bass player right off the jump?
Right off the jump. Wow. Right off the jump. And I asked about it, years later. I'm like, "Why did you ask that?" And his girl happened to say, the image of the band, just, you need a blonde bass player.
Oh, wow.
It's all coincidence. And, you think it's coincidence, but is there a higher power that's actually driving us to where we're supposed to be?
Right, because it just seems like everything happened for you full circle. Like you said, when you were a teenager, it was you met a band who needed a bass player, and you were like, I'll do it. And then you meet Fitzy, and he's like, are you a bass player? Like, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it kind of blows your mind when you think back on it now. You know, I've been in the band for, I want to say maybe over 4 years now. It's but you still have to think back on that because, you know, in 4 years, this band has done some things that I've been trying to do my entire life. And it's, you know, really invigorated my desire to do something of prevalence in the music industry.
Well, with all that being said, let's talk about Tesla some more because you had brought them up earlier. But what's it been like working with and touring with Tesla? And you were even working with them during this quarantine, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's first and foremost going back, pinching myself every day to even think that I'm working with a legendary band, the likes of Tesla, you know, when I can remember back in, God, I'm probably going to date myself, but back in 93, standing in the crowd, watching them on the Psychotic Supper tour and just being blown away by just how insanely good and how tight those guys were. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you fast forward all this time and you know, to be able to consider them friends is just sort of mind-blowing. So yeah, it's a pinch yourself moment, but it's been something that I think everybody in this band, we've all worked hard. We put our work in, and we put our, you know, at some costs, our families and the things that are even more important aside to further our careers and to have the support of a band that's been around for, you know, 35 plus years in your back pocket is a blessing. It really is.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that must feel like.
It's just, again, it's sometimes you just, things happen and you look at, you know, I'll look to Johnny and go, is this real? I mean, what have we done to deserve this? You know, and I might say that, but, you know, I think about it sometimes and I'm like, you know what? We've all put in a lot of work. You know, it's nice to get a little bit of, I don't know, satisfaction out of all that hard work.
Now, when you're touring with them and all that, are you guys like great friends? Do you get along? Do you all hang out? Is it that kind of tour?
We do. We have our times to hang out. You know, I mean, a tour is not all fun and games all the time. You know, the biggest responsibility of being on tour is getting to that performance and giving your all. You know, so there are rules. You know, there's the right time to be hanging out and having a good time, and then there's time to get your sleep in, your rest in, and get to the next destination safely. But those times that we are allowed, you know, all of us to commingle and have a good time, it's like one big happy family, you know, and that includes everybody from the crew all the way down to Jeff Keith. You know, it's one big happy family. There's no, I'm going to use this. There's no bad blood anywhere. And there's, you know, we're not in the 80s anymore, you know?
Right.
Things are different. And, you know, we have a good time. Let's just put it that way. I do want to reserve some things if I ever get to write a book down the line. But it is a good time, and I use the word family a couple times. That really is how it feels. So did you,
this year during the quarantine, you were actually in California, were you recording with them, or they were recording something for you, or what was that all about?
Yeah, so since we got involved with Tesla going back a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, we've been working a lot with Brian Wheat. He has taken a lot of young bands under his wing and helps produce and really craft good songs, you know. And so he's kind of been kind of a mentor for us for the last couple of years, and we've been working with him a lot, mostly him out of everybody in the band. So what we had the opportunity to do early on in this pandemic is we flew out to his studio in California like we had done the year prior. Now, the year prior, we recorded one song together, which we had released a couple months back, probably at the height of the pandemic. That's one song on a future EP that we went to finish with him on the second trip. Okay. So we recorded 4 more songs when we were there. We were there for 7 or 8 days. So we did everything soup to nuts in 7 or 8 days, and we're starting to get some mixes back and listening and making sure everything's good. And we're going to reserve that. That probably come out sometime in mid to late 2021.
Awesome. Okay, very cool. So have you guys have probably been doing a lot of writing during quarantine then, I would imagine, right?
It's been an insane amount of writing. There's really been nothing else that we can do.
Right.
So we've taken full advantage of that time that we're given. And, we have a lot of material that is already recorded, produced by Mike Fitz himself. Over at his studio. We've kind of shared tracks back and forth. I have a little studio at my place here, so I record my bass here, and we'll ship it back and forth. But we've done enough. We're going to have a follow-up album coming out, hopefully early 2021. That's fully produced and mastered by Mike. And then we'll see what we follow up with that on. If we go with the Brian Wheat sessions, or we go to the well that we have right now, because it's pretty deep.
Right. I can imagine when you're used to playing all these gigs and touring, that when that all shuts down, you just take to what you do and you write music.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's kind of we don't want this time off from the road, but it has been a blessing because we've had a lot of stuff that we had already written before this come up that we hadn't been able to track. So not only have we been able to track that, but we've been able to write, a plethora of new material.
Excellent. So if I asked you what your favorite Bad Marriage song is right now that's already been released, what would you say?
Oh, that's a very tough one, and it's going to have to be a toss-up between the last two releases. I mean, I love the song Together that we produced with Brian, because I think it's the song that strays the most from most of our catalog and kind of brought out different things in the band that, we didn't think were possible. And, that's what having someone like a Brian Wheat in your corner can do for you.
Right.
But then we've just released Bad Blood, which is, very much in line what we do, but a little bit more amped up. I mean, if you could compare it, I'm not comparing it to songs, but how Skid Row released their first album, classic album.
Mm-hmm.
Love that album, start to finish. Slave to the Grind got a little bit more aggressive.
Yes.
I find Bad Blood is a little bit more aggressive side.
Yeah, you're speaking my language again here. We're vibing on that.
Yeah, and there's some of that in some of the new material. The new material is just very varying in how it sounds. It can go from light to pretty to some more Diablo type stuff.
Right. So let's curve away from music for just a second, because I need to ask you this. Are you actually a wrestling fan, or are you just fucking with me?
I am an old school wrestling fan. I probably retired from being a wrestling fan sometime in the late 2000s.
Okay, that's fair. That's a great era. So,
let's put it this way: when Vince started owning absolutely everything before the new stuff started coming in, now is when I lost interest, because it was just the same old. Nothing new was coming in. Nothing fresh.
Right.
But I remember going to the Boston Garden and seeing Hulk Hogan and Big Boss Man and Andre the Giant, and then later actually getting to meet Undertaker and Paul Bearer, and full kayfabe, not breaking character. I mean, that's the stuff I love.
Yeah,
that's what I love.
Oh, that's the best, the best era.
It really was. Meeting someone like The Undertaker, at that point, he was probably 2 years into his career when I met him.
Oh, wow.
And the guy is absolutely one of the top of the game, ever.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Still to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I had a double reason for bringing up wrestling, because we were talking about Skid Row. And did you see that Sebastian Bach and Chris Jericho are kind of at each other's throats right now?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you.
No?
Sebastian is not afraid to run his mouth and says what's on his mind.
I agree. I respect him for that. And some of the stuff he was saying, I was kind of like, yeah, man, you're right.
Absolutely. But, I think that all stems back not even from recent events. I don't think Sebastian is a fan of Fozzy.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think that's where it comes in. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I really don't. But I think there's a lot of bad blood between those two.
You like tossing that bad blood around.
Yeah, it's, you learn this late in life how to push things. You know?
All right, let's get back to the music then. And
Sure.
Tell me, besides Tesla, some of the favorite bands that you've shared a stage with.
I love sharing stage with Dokken. I loved Dokken growing up as well. You know, I met George back when Dokken had split and he was in Lynch Mob, and then having the opportunity to share a stage with Don and Wild Nick was just like another dream come true. But that's a kind of a funny story. You know, we showed up to that gig and there was no backline there for Dokken. And the promoter came up to us and said, you know, hey, would you guys mind using your equipment to backline Dokken tonight? And I said, not only do we get to open for Dokken, but we're going to backline Dokken? I mean, where do I sign?
That's excellent. Wow. And you had no idea that was going on.
We had no idea what was going on. Well, neither did Don Dokken know that was going on.
Oh, wow.
He was none too pleased because, you know, when you're a band of, you know, you've been around for a long time and you expect your writer to be fulfilled a certain way. So he expected, you know, some Marshall stacks. He expected some Ampeg stacks and a drum kit to be provided and certain things. And they did not provide that. I mean, thankfully our equipment is professional enough that, you know, each musician looked over. Wild Nick sat with Delaney and made sure the drums were sufficient, gave the thumbs up and said, hey, you know, look, it's Bad Marriage featuring Don Dokken tonight, you know? So everything worked out. The show went off without a hitch. And, you know, I know people give Don a lot of bad press nowadays. He's had a lot of issues, but that night he sounded fantastic. And I got 25 minutes backstage just sitting on a stairwell just talking about life with him, which was just fascinating.
That's really cool. I'm a big Dokken fan, too. And oddly enough, since the election is happening right now, I saw a sticker on the back of a Jeep the other day that said Don Dokken for president. I was blown away. I was like, somebody else that lives in my town likes Dokken.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate he's going through a lot now. You know, I wish him nothing but the best. I think he, you know, maybe hopefully this time off in the pandemic is gonna do him some good and get his back all healed up and get back out there.
Oh yeah, I hope so. I just listened to, actually this morning, the first time ever, I listened to the Lost Tapes that he just put out, or the Lost Tracks or Songs or whatever it was called, and it's amazing. I loved it.
He's still got some tricks up his sleeve. He does.
Absolutely. What other bands are on your list?
Let's see. We've gotten to open for LA Guns a couple times, and yeah, I like opening for those guys. They're always fun, and I love that first album back in the day. So many killer songs on that. Buck Cherry's fun too. You know, those guys you want to talk. I use the word family with Tesla. Those guys are just one big family. I mean, they just want to get out there, play their rock and roll, and just hang out with each other. So if I had to name those, you know, besides Tesla, those would be the ones that well, you know what? I'm leaving a big one out, and I can't believe I just almost did that being from Boston. I had the chance to open for Extreme.
Come on. I knew you were going to say that as soon as you said being from Boston.
You know, I can't believe it slipped my mind. But yeah, I mean, I met those guys when Extreme 2 Point Graffiti came out, and I remember going to the Tower Records to meet them, and I have Polaroids of them sitting at the table doing signatures, and I have my cassette still signed by the band. And then to have that opportunity to share the stage with them many years later was again mind-blowing. And it's again another one of those things. I'm sitting here right now thinking about it, and I'm actually pinching myself like, did that really happen?
Yeah, that's a full circle moment for you.
It is. And those guys, again, are another big family. Those guys absolutely love each other. They love playing for the fans, and we love playing for the fans. You know, it's if there wasn't fans, I think we'd still continue, you know, writing and playing rock and roll. But to throw that energy out and then have it thrown back at you is the greatest feeling in the world.
Absolutely. I can agree with that 100%. You talked about the bands that you love playing with. Is there a bucket list of bands that you haven't played with yet, but you really are looking forward to getting a chance to do so?
You know, I've kind of set my goals high whenever I do something. You know, people who know me might laugh, but I do. Mm-hmm. And one of those goals, there was a show that was supposed to go off in September of this year that didn't go off at Fenway Park, and it's been pushed to 2021. And I think we need to be on that show as a band in Bad Marriage, and it's just kind of a guilty pleasure for me. Mm-hmm. Aerosmith and Extreme, and it's the 50th, it'll be the 51 anniversary of Aerosmith at that point.
Wow.
You've had the Boston Bad Boys, you have Extreme, who just went to great heights, and again, representing the town, and we just want to be able to share the stage with those two legends, even if they give us 2 songs or anything. I just feel like we need to be on that show. So,
and that show you said is supposed to happen next year now in 2021.
It is. I can dream high. I mean,
absolutely.
If I don't get to tour with Aerosmith, which I've always wanted to do, I'll take a show with Aerosmith. I'd love to tour with Guns N' Roses. Like I said, I aim high when I ask for some things. Even AC/DC coming out with a new album and potentially going out on a tour. I can't think of another band that we'd fit so good on a package with them.
Yeah.
But have we done enough to earn our right to onto those big shows?
Well, I feel like you have to set your sights high, or else what good is it if you're just kind of like, I'd be happy to just play at the bar down the street.
Yeah, exactly. No, and there's nothing wrong with playing at the bar down the street. I have played in so many bands, and for a long time I was carrying multiple bands, original and covers, and I love playing at the bar down the street. Mm-hmm. But when your dream has been to be on those larger stages and you get a little taste of it, you can't take a step back and say, well, I'm going to be happy now playing, because I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to love still playing those places, but I'm not going to be happy until I get to that next career advancement from where I am.
Right.
Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. So what's going to be next for Bad Marriage once this pandemic and quarantine is lifted?
Well, I mean, like I said, we want to get the follow-up album out. I think we were shooting for the end of this year, but I think now it's going to be early next year. We want to get that out. Depending on the world, we'd love to tour behind that, but we're going to have to, take a wait-and-see approach on that one. Depending on the time with that, we have the Brian Weed EP that we want to release out there. But again, that's one that when we do release that, we want to be touring behind that. So that may be reserved until the world is fully open.
Right. Did you guys miss any tour dates with Tesla because of the pandemic, or were you guys off the tour by then?
No, we luckily got home, 2 days before the first reported case in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it ended just as everything was creeping up, and we got home in time. But, that's not to say that, when we got home, it hadn't already been in the country. I'm not going to get into all the politics of the COVID stuff, but it just seems coincidental, like, we were lucky that tour ended at that time, and we didn't have to cancel anything, Right, yeah, and I kind of remember that, too, because I was trying to work out with my wrestling schedule to see if I can catch you guys somewhere. I remember that was all starting around then, so... Yeah.
So
it was just crazy coincidental with how it just all happened.
Yeah, and it seemed so fast, like everything just came to a screeching halt.
Yes.
And I know, a lot of people were freaking out about, is the Motley Crue tour going to happen still? Because that was like the biggest news on the planet.
Right,
and
right.
like myself included, because I got my tickets day one.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, and even, all musicians, they were probably, like us, we were all in a panic, like, oh my God, our everything is stopped for us. But then we stopped and think about it for a second. It's like, well, it didn't just stop for us. It stopped for the entire industry, and not just our industry. Pretty much the entire entertainment industry from soup to nuts. I mean,
yeah,
everything. So it's like if they had to take any comfort in the fact that you weren't doing anything, you weren't alone in that fact.
Oh, yeah.
And what sucks the most, the people that are probably suffering the most in the entertainment industries, it's not your big Hollywood stars, it's not your big musicians, it's their crews, And everybody needs to be supporting the crews for the entire entertainment industry right now, because it's, we don't have an end in sight right now, and everybody's out of work. So
yeah, 100%. That's very true.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's get to the light at the end of the tunnel and see where this election goes before, we got to worry about the pandemic, but I mean, we got crazy things going on in the last couple of days alone in our government. So
agreed, and unfortunately, Don Dokken is not in the running for that.
No. No, rockin' for dockin'.
Well, before I let you go, man, can you plug your social media and the band's social media and just let everybody know where to find the music and where they can just follow you guys for all the updates?
Absolutely. We have a website out there, old school website, badmarriagemusic.com. If you haven't visited there and you're just hearing about us for the first time, I very, very much suggest joining our VIP mailing list, because any news or info that we have, we release to that list first before it goes to any of our other social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook, Bad Marriage Band. We're all over Instagram. Every member of the band tries to keep their social presence up. As far as music, you can find it all over Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, pretty much anywhere you can get your digital music. If you're an old school collector and you want an old fashioned CD that a lot of people still want, you can get that at our website again, badmarriagemusic.com, in our store, along with some, I'd say some pretty killer merchandise.
Yeah, I got my Bad Marriage shirt on right now. It's badass stuff.
Awesome. We're always trying to keep that fresh and release new designs. So, and again, if you're not part of the mailing list, right on the homepage of badmarriagemusic.com, you can sign up for that mailing list, and we'll keep you apprised of any new stuff coming out before anybody else knows.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, man. I truly appreciate it. It was fun learning about your career up to now.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Rob.
Yeah. After you guys do, your next release and all that, come on back on the show and let's plug it and play some tracks.
We'll definitely do that.
All right, cool. Thank you, man. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Alright, Rock Soldiers, so you just listened to Sorry Don't Feed the Bulldog by Bad Marriage, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Todd's got a cool story, he's an excellent musician, and Bad Marriage is incredible, so check him out more so than just the 2 songs that you heard clips of today. Let us know what you think. Interact with us on our social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at ABAOPod. There's even an ABAOPod Facebook, so you can get at us anywhere. On Twitter and Instagram, we do a lot of polls and a lot of interactive stuff for you guys, so give us a follow. We're just really starting to push the social media pretty hard, and the show is gaining a lot of steam, so thank you guys very much, and we will see you next week.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.